It's Throwback Thursday today. And just looking at some of the responses that I've received from some very extremely racist Canadians to the petition that's out there, I thought I would take those supremacists and others who may not know back in time, seeing that it is Throwback Thursday, TBT, you don't know. So, a lot of the racist comments that have been left on the post about the ongoing petition that was submitted by Black People United for Change, a common response is go back to where you come from, you're ruining our country, and what have you. So, since it's Throwback Thursday, let me take you back to the year 1763 here in Canada, which was at that time called Kanata. Kanata, Kanata. So in 1763, a royal proclamation established the framework for British governance and relations with the First Nations people in Kanata, aka Canada. So, this particular framework laid the groundwork for land cessions, which means that these intruders who sailed all the way from Britain came and basically, in a nutshell, took the land from the First Nations people by force because the indigenous at that time were put in positions to forfeit their land that these British bullies took away from them because they felt, that they had no choice but to surrender their land. Because what these British bullies did when they came with nothing in mind than to take what isn't theirs, they had the indigenous First Nations people sign these treaties and agreements, but they were such kind hearted people and trusting people that they didn't really read or possibly didn't understand the fine print. So they had these little treaties and proclamations set in place that, gradually they were ripping the land, the soil from under the First Nations here in Kanata, aka Canada, without their full understanding of what these British bullies were doing. So, speeding a little forward now, Prime Minister Wilfred Laurier, and we actually have schools named after this despicable human being. He didn't feel like going through that long and dragged out process of drafting this treaty and that proclamation and what have you. So he accelerated the process of taking the land from the First Nations people because he just didn't feel he had any time to enter into any long or dragged out treaty agreements. So what they did, they started using coercion, bullyism, taking their kids away from them, and all kind of low down tactics to come all the way from Europe to seize land that was never theirs to control in the first place. Now, Justin, our last prime minister, Justin Trudeau, his father, Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau, when he came into power in the 60s, he abolished that Indian Act and ended any remnants of any special legal relationships between the First Nations people and the Canadian state. Now, the Indigenous in 2025 are still fighting for their rights on the land that these violence loving fake supremacists took unethically. So their ancestors, their uh, their generations from back in that time, now in this day and age, are still fighting for what was stolen away from them, you know? So these bullies from Britain, their ancestors now could come on a national petition to fight against anti black racism and tell people to go back where they come from, but them and their ancestors, I guess they must have lost the map to sail back to Europe where they come from. So whenever a racist supremacist Canadian tells me or any other black person or any other non-white Canadian to go back where we come from and this is their country, please do remind them what they did to even be here in 1763. And if there was ever mass deportation in Canada, I guess a lot of us would be dipped back to where we come from because this land is not theirs to be territorial about. So when you come on a petition presented to petition the same corrupt government to implement anti black racism and hate laws in a country that was built on the blood and corruption and theft from another people that you sailed all the way from Europe to bamboozle and coerce and take from them and steal from them. Remember how you are even standing on indigenous soil in the first place. So now I'm going to flip the script. I'll go back to where I come from when you go back. You don't know. Just a little bit of history for you today. And do remember, if you would like to sign the petition to lobby and challenge the government to implement anti black racism laws and hate laws, please log on to www.blackpeopleunitedforchange.ca. The link would be found right up there on the home page. You don't know. Have a wonderful day.